22-year-old community college student Jasmine Pace had planned to spend Thanksgiving 2022 with her family. But to her mother's surprise, she suddenly canceled at the last minute, sending a text to let them know. Then, an unexpected post appeared on Jasmine's Facebook account. It read, "Enjoying Thanksgiving with my baby." However, something was off. The photo attached to the post didn't match the date. In the image, Jasmine's distinctive tattoos were missing, tattoos she had gotten over the course of several months. It was immediately clear the picture wasn't recent. Concern turned into dread as her family began to realize what this could mean. No one had seen or spoken to Jasmine, and someone was online pretending to be her. This case is as chilling as it is heartbreaking, a story that lingers in the mind long after it's told. On the night before Thanksgiving, November 22, 2022, Jasmine left her mother's home in Chattanooga, Tennessee. It was just before 11:30 p.m. when she drove off in her white Chevy Equinox. The next day, her mother, Katrina Pace, received a text message from Jasmine's phone saying she'd be spending the rest of the week at her friend Emma's house. Jasmine had recently lost her grandmother to cancer, so her decision to skip the family gathering wasn't immediately alarming. It wasn't unusual for her to take time alone to grieve. But everything changed after the Facebook post appeared. The photo showed Jasmine wearing a revealing outfit, not something she would normally share online. Her mother found that deeply suspicious, but what alarmed Jasmine's father, Travis Pace, was even more telling: the tattoos. Jasmine had a series of tattoos that were like a visual timeline, each one inked on a different date. In the photo, the tattoos on her upper right arm were completely gone. This meant the picture had to be months old. Katrina reached out to Emma to confirm her fears. Jasmine had not been staying with her, as the text had claimed. Other friends and family had also received messages from Jasmine's phone, all saying she wanted space or time alone. But no one had actually spoken to her. That's when her loved ones began to fear the worst and launched a search to find her. Thankfully, Jasmine's white SUV had a built-in GPS tracking system called My Chevy. Using the app, her mother traced the vehicle to a condo complex on Mountain Creek Road in Chattanooga. It was now November 26th, around 8:30 p.m., 4 days since Jasmine had last been seen. No one in the family knew of any connection Jasmine had to the Signal View condos, where the vehicle was found parked. When they looked inside the SUV, the driver's seat had been pushed far back, something that didn't match Jasmine's petite height of 5 feet 2 inches. It was clear someone taller had been driving. Katrina called 911 to report her daughter missing. Police responded and took a detailed report of everything the family had discovered.
We want her home and we want her safe.
Bailey Putman is doing anything she can to try to bring her childhood friend home. Jasmine Pace hasn't been seen since November 22nd. Chattanooga police are investigating the case as a missing person.
Her mom has not an ounce of sleep. I don't think she is 8.
Jasmine was last seen here on surveillance video leaving her mom's house. They believe she was trying to leave town to grieve a recent death in the family, but they knew something went wrong when she didn't show up to Thanksgiving dinner.
And that is so very unlike her. There's not a day that they don't hear from Jasmine, let alone an hour.
In a desperate attempt to find her daughter, Katrina also reached out to their cell phone provider. Since Jasmine was part of the family plan, Katrina had full access to her call records. What she found only added to her worry. Jasmine's phone hadn't made any calls in several days. With the call log in hand and police by her side, Katrina began dialing every number listed. One particular call stood out, a conversation that had lasted over an hour on the night of November 22nd, the same night Jasmine left home. When Katrina dialed the number, a young man answered. He introduced himself as Jason Chen, a computer science student at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. Jason told her that he and Jasmine had met through the dating app Bumble and had been casually seeing each other for a few months. However, their relationship hadn't been serious enough for her to introduce him to her parents, which is why neither Katrina nor Travis had ever heard of him before. When informed that Jasmine was missing, Jason claimed he hadn't heard from her in days. He also said that their last conversation had only lasted a few minutes, but Katrina immediately recognized that this wasn't true. The call records clearly showed the two had spoken for over an hour that night. Her instincts told her something was very wrong.
He talked to her for 71 minutes. He would remember that. He talked to her for over an hour, and he just lied.
Jason's indifferent attitude raised more concerns. Katrina begged officers to take more serious action, but they hesitated. Since Jasmine was an adult and there was no solid evidence of foul play at the time, there wasn't much they felt they could do. A basic report was filed, contact details were exchanged, and the officers left, once again leaving the worried parents feeling helpless. Determined not to wait around, Katrina and Travis took matters into their own hands. They began knocking on doors throughout the condo complex where Jasmine's SUV had been found, but no one reported seeing her. A break came when a security guard agreed to check surveillance footage of the white Chevy pulling into the lot. Using the timestamps from the My Chevy app, they zeroed in on the relevant footage from November 23rd, just after 8:30 p.m. The SUV was seen entering the lot and heading toward the area where it was eventually located. Unfortunately, the driver's identity couldn't be determined from the video. While reviewing her phone again, Katrina noticed one more message that she hadn't paid much attention to. Sent from Jasmine's phone at 2:18 a.m. on November 23rd, it had no text, just a dropped pin showing her phone's location at that moment. It was an unusual thing for Jasmine to do, especially at that time of night. The very next day, after police had once again offered no real help, Jasmine's family went to the address from the pinned location, 110 Tremont Street. They knocked on every door in the apartment complex except one, apartment 210. No one answered there. Neighbors, however, recalled hearing a loud disturbance coming from that unit in the early hours of November 23rd, around 2:15 a.m., right when the pin had been sent. Details varied, but somehow Katrina and Travis managed to gain entry into apartment 210. Near the door was a notebook revealing the tenant's name, Jason Chen. The apartment was small with an open floor plan. The kitchen was only a few steps from the living area. A short hallway led to a single bedroom, with one bathroom and a stacked washer-dryer in a closet. Most of the space could be seen upon entering. On the kitchen counter sat a travel bag, Jasmine's. Scattered nearby were cleaning supplies. In the drawer of a desk, Travis found Jasmine's driver's license and credit cards. He pulled them out and left them clearly visible. Chattanooga police were contacted again and returned to the apartment. They briefly spoke with Katrina and also talked to the neighbors. But once more, officers left without taking action. Feeling the system had failed them again, Katrina returned to the unit multiple times that day. She collected anything she believed might provide answers: notebooks, electronics, multiple phones, an iPad, and a camera. That night, the parents even searched the dumpsters outside. Finally, close to midnight, police came back, this time with a search warrant. A formal investigation of apartment 210 began. During their initial walkthrough, officers observed several reddish stains. Some were on the hardwood floor in the living room. Others had seeped into the bathroom grout and the carpet in the bedroom. Spatter was also seen on the bathroom wall and door. The large amount of cleaning products only deepened suspicions. When police checked the dumpsters, they recovered 2 white sneakers and a pair of blue pants. Back inside, investigators noticed broken glass pieces in the living room. There were signs that furniture had been rearranged. Imprints in the carpet showed where pieces had once been placed and then moved, likely in an attempt to hide something. Underneath the bed, officers discovered a large stain. A kitchen knife sat on top of the mattress. In nearly every room, stains that could potentially be blood were found. The crime scene unit sprayed the apartment with Blue Star, a chemical that reveals traces of cleaned-up blood. The hallway lit up. At that moment, the case of Jasmine Pace officially shifted from a missing person to a homicide investigation. Detectives began collecting surveillance footage from both Jason's apartment complex and surrounding buildings. They pieced together a timeline of his movements to figure out where Jasmine might be. They confirmed Jasmine's arrival at 110 Tremont Street before midnight on November 22nd. Her white Chevy Equinox was seen making a right turn into the parking lot. The same vehicle was recorded leaving the next evening, November 23rd around 8:30 p.m., and headed toward the Signal View condos. A person in a light-colored hoodie was seen driving it. Soon after, a dark Prius, likely a rideshare, picked up that same person from the condo complex and dropped them off in front of Jason's building. Ring camera footage from an apartment near the parking lot door captured Jason Chen exiting the building several times on November 23rd, including at 8:27 p.m. just minutes before Jasmine's SUV was driven away and left at the condos. Investigators also found a few other suspicious outings by Jason over the Thanksgiving holiday. One key moment was a solo trip to Walmart. He was captured on security cameras buying bandages, hydrogen peroxide, and cleaning supplies. He used self-checkout and suspiciously rang up some of the more expensive items as cheap vegetables like asparagus. Walmart's overhead cameras clearly captured Jason and the white sneakers he was wearing. The shoes discovered in the apartment complex's dumpsters were believed to be the same ones Jason was seen wearing in the Walmart surveillance footage. That same evening, Jason also made a stop at Walgreens, where he purchased a roll of paper towels. Sometime between his Walmart trip and the time he departed the blood-stained apartment, clearly cleaned in haste, Jason had likely removed Jasmine's body from the premises. Investigators believed he had started disposing of his belongings, such as clothing, to eliminate any evidence that could tie him to the crime. As authorities continued reviewing footage across various parts of Chattanooga, Jason's bright white hoodie helped them follow his movements. The hoodie was highly visible, even in low-light, grainy surveillance videos, which made tracking him more manageable. Just before 6 p.m. on November 23rd, cameras recorded the white-hooded figure once again exiting Jason's building. This time, the person appeared to be dragging a large suitcase out the front entrance toward the parking area. Moments later, Jason's black Toyota Camry was seen pulling away. Nearly a week later, on November 29th, exactly 7 days after Jasmine was last seen, police located Jason Chen at his parents' residence in Nolanville. During the arrest, officers noted visible cuts on his right hand and feet, injuries consistent with having been involved in a violent altercation.
He's gonna pat you down. He's gonna place some handcuffs. No, he's gonna arrest you. Just call us and you go to the back of the car. So you're gonna put handcuffs. Good.
Okay. So you said there was a search warrant for me?
Correct. Yeah. There's a search warrant for your person. So we're Nolanville Police Department. We're gonna be detaining you and complying with the search warrant. We're assisting gentlemen.
Okay. And is there any like calls or anything?
Yeah. They're gonna explain. That's it. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
We're gonna let them do that, but I don't want to speak for them. Yeah, we don't want to misinform you of anything, so they'll tell you all that when we get down there. So just take it from them. They're the lead on this.
But we'll let them explain it because we don't want to pile on information. We'll let them one time it all down.
Okay.
All right. So if you will, just face away from me. All right. Do you have anything?
Authorities secured a search warrant for Jason Chen's family home. In the room he had been staying in, investigators found a black backpack along with several handwritten notes. These writings appeared to be Jason's attempt to craft a consistent narrative for any questions that might come from law enforcement. In one note, he claimed that he had last seen Jasmine on November 19th and had only spoken to her on the 22nd. He described her as someone with a history of running away and mentioned that she had once filed a restraining order against an ex-boyfriend. Jason also wrote that Jasmine had experienced homelessness and suggested that her mother struggled with alcoholism, all seemingly calculated to portray her as an unstable young woman who might disappear on her own. Inside his backpack, hidden in a glasses case, detectives discovered a SIM card belonging to Jasmine's phone. Authorities also seized Jason's own mobile device and began downloading its contents. What they found was deeply troubling. Among the data was a photo of Jasmine, taken in Jason's bathroom the night she vanished. There were also screenshots of text messages she had supposedly sent him, yet the actual texts had been deleted from the phone. On the morning after Jasmine was likely killed, Jason had sent her a photo and a message that read, "Slept like a baby." Later that same day, he followed up with another message asking, "Hey, are we still good for dinner tonight?" The disturbing part, metadata revealed the photo he had sent was taken 2 years earlier. From Jasmine's phone data, detectives were able to track her device's movements. Her phone had gone with Jason to Walmart that morning, even though surveillance footage showed him alone in the store. Eventually, the phone's GPS history led them to another location, Suck Creek Road. This remote road runs alongside a riverbank, and on Thursday, December 1st, investigators began to comb the area. It was there, near the water's edge, that they discovered what they had feared: a large suitcase matching the one seen on security footage. Inside was 22-year-old Jasmine Pace, weighing just 98 pounds. Her body had been placed in 3 trash bags and bound with 2 sets of handcuffs. Her right arm had been shackled to her right ankle, while her left ankle was locked to her right elbow. These restraints were not the heavy-duty type used by law enforcement. They were flimsy, with one chain already broken. The autopsy results were devastating. Jasmine had suffered more than 60 stab wounds, almost all concentrated on the upper left side of her torso. A knife blade was still lodged in her chest when her body was found. Jasmine was more than just a victim of a horrific crime. She was a beloved aunt to 2 nieces and a godmother to a young boy named Juan. According to her sister Gabby, Jasmine often talked about wanting a family of her own and dreamed of becoming a mother someday. She adored animals and was especially attached to her 4 cats. Known as Jazzy by her loved ones, the vibrant 22-year-old was deeply protective of her family and fiercely loyal to her friends. She is remembered for her big heart, her supportiveness, and her unwavering presence whenever someone needed her.
There was a moment when you're with her, you realized how clever, how smart, how brilliant she was.
Knowing how many lives that she touched and them spreading the word on my sister, I think it also touched other people's hearts that have probably gone through a situation like this.
I've known her my entire life, and I've never seen her burn a bridge or have ends with someone badly.
She just always made it a point to know, for you to know that she was thinking of you and that she loved you. She was fierce over her family. She was fierce over her friends.
In December 2022, a judge set Jason Chen's bond at an astonishing $5 million. As the horrifying details of Jasmine Pace's murder began to surface in the media, public outrage grew. Many were appalled that Jason had been granted bond at all. By this point, investigators had compiled a thorough timeline of the crime, uncovering that Jason had used Jasmine's phone and SIM card after her death to log into her bank accounts and social media. He even posted deceptive updates in an attempt to make it appear that Jasmine was still alive. In a particularly disturbing twist, he messaged a woman he'd recently matched with on Tinder saying, "I guess we're dating now," while Jasmine's lifeless body allegedly remained in his bedroom. Later that same evening, he reached out to friends to arrange an online session of Call of Duty, mentioning that he just needed to finish cleaning his apartment first. As the case prepared to go to trial, many were left wondering what kind of defense Jason's legal team could possibly present. When the trial began in January 2025, the answer was as surprising as it was grim. On the very first day, defense attorney Josh Wise made no attempt to deny Jason's responsibility for Jasmine's death. During his opening remarks to the jury, he admitted outright that Jason Chen had killed Jasmine Pace. However, he argued that the killing was not planned in advance. According to the defense, this was a case of voluntary manslaughter, not first-degree murder. Though the prosecution was not seeking the death penalty, Jason still faced the prospect of spending the rest of his life behind bars without the chance of parole if convicted of premeditated murder. His only real hope rested on persuading the jury that his crime was not deliberate, but instead a spontaneous act of violence.
This is the suitcase in which Jason Chen stuffed the 98-pound body of Jasmine Pace. That's where I'm going to begin this story. Except, I want you to remember that as you hear evidence in the next week, that this is not a story like the one that you read in a novel where you have to imagine the appearances of characters. The evidence that you will hear in this case is very real. The evidence will not require that you use your imagination. Jasmine Pace was very real. And Jason Chen really killed her.
To successfully argue for a voluntary manslaughter charge, Jason Chen's defense team had to persuade the jury that Jasmine's death occurred during a sudden, emotional outburst, that Jason had been provoked and acted irrationally in the heat of the moment. The defense's narrative suggested that the couple had been drinking wine together late into the evening at Jason's apartment. At some point, Jasmine went into the kitchen to grab another bottle and, while there, reportedly heard multiple notifications chiming from Jason's phone, the distinctive sounds of the Tinder app. This, they claimed, enraged her and sparked a heated confrontation. According to the defense, Jasmine lashed out, allegedly attacking Jason with a broken wine glass. They further claimed that a kitchen knife, which had earlier been used to remove the seal from a bottle of wine, had been left on the bedside table in the bedroom. It was this knife, they argued, that Jason grabbed in a moment of panic while trying to defend himself. Attorney Josh Wise tried to explain the restraints found on Jasmine's body by claiming that, after the stabbing, Jason panicked and used the handcuffs to position her body in a way that allowed it to fit into trash bags and ultimately into the suitcase. The timelines surrounding Jasmine's death and the events that followed were supported by an array of evidence, including surveillance footage, data from both Jason and Jasmine's cell phones, and witness testimony. One neighbor, Courtney Brewer, reported hearing a disturbance from the apartment sometime shortly after 2 a.m., aligning with the suggested timeline of the fatal altercation.
On the night of November the 22nd and early hours of November the 23rd, was there an incident that you can recall?
Yes, I was woken up in the middle of the night by a loud scream.
Can you kind of take us, and you can go slowly through the events that woke you up and everything that you heard from that point until you didn't hear it?
There was a scream that startled me out of my sleep while I checked my phone to see the time because I was going to call 911. It was around 2 a.m. There was a voice that was screaming words. The words I couldn't understand fully.
Was it a male voice or female?
A female voice. And then there sounded, assuming that the apartment above mine is laid out the same as mine, there sounded like chasing, a lot of footsteps going across towards the front door.
One person's footsteps or two?
It sounded like multiple.
You said towards the front door. Was it towards the front door or towards the bedroom?
Towards the front door because I was in the bedroom when I heard it.
You had said that you heard a scream. Can you describe the scream?
Distressed. Not quite angry. Emphatic.
Reconstructing a plausible scenario for the murder heavily relied on the physical evidence found at the crime scene. But this is where the case became complicated. Not only had Jason used several cleaning agents throughout the apartment and disposed of multiple items, including the broken knife, but the scene had also been entered and searched by Katrina Pace on several occasions. This raised significant concerns about the potential contamination of the crime scene, casting doubt on the integrity of the evidence collected.
Why would the apartment look different after police went in there than when they were in there? Who changed it?
The defense brought in its own crime scene expert to highlight the numerous changes visible at the scene, from the initial police response to the point when it was finally photographed and processed. They pointed out that furniture had been rearranged and items had been removed, suggesting the possibility that evidence could have been tampered with or planted. Travis Pace, during his testimony, stated that he did not recall seeing a knife on the bed when he and his ex-wife first entered the apartment in search of their daughter.
And then this past Monday, you were in this room when you saw Katrina Pace testify on that stand, right? Were any of those statements true? We remember it differently. You heard Katrina testify that she went back into the apartment multiple times after that night, or after that morning? I heard that. Were you with her those times? I was there. You know what she did in the apartment during those times? Mm-hmm. Your ex-wife, Katrina Pace, does she have a reputation for being honest? Mr. Pace, in your opinion, does Katrina Pace, is she an honest person? I don't have an opinion. You don't have an opinion.
While the crime scene itself raised doubts, the conclusions drawn by the medical examiner were clear and pointed to a premeditated attack. Dr. Stephen Cogwell, the Hamilton County medical examiner, determined that based on the location of the wounds, Jasmine had likely been in a fetal position when she was attacked. The shackles she was found wearing were believed to have been applied while she was still alive, adding to the severity of the crime.
If someone were stabbing a person 60 times, we would expect them to try to get away. But what if they can't? What if they can't because their right hand is chained to their right leg, their left leg chained to their right elbow? Makes it difficult to run. Makes it difficult to do anything. Dr. Cogswell told you that she was stabbed in the fetal position 60 times. We'd also expect that if she's being attacked on the right side of her body, that she might try to defend herself with both hands. There should be injuries on both hands. Instead, what we have are injuries to the left hand, no significant injuries to the right hand. That's consistent with her being in the fetal position with a hand unable to move on the ground. It's consistent with exactly what we see on the screen right there, her being handcuffed.
Dr. Cogwell also found no evidence of alcohol consumption at the time of Jasmine's death, directly contradicting Jason's claim that they had been drinking wine for hours, which he used to justify the provocation that led to the murder. Furthermore, the Tinder notifications Jason had claimed were a source of anger for Jasmine were also proven to be false. An examination of the app's data by a state expert showed that Jason had not received a single notification from Tinder that day. Jason Chen chose not to testify in his own defense. After 6 days of presenting evidence, his legal team essentially abandoned the initial defense story, instead arguing that the absence of ligature marks on Jasmine's wrists suggested she might not have been alive when the handcuffs were applied. However, their crime scene experts' attempt to cast doubt on the matter by referencing a potential bloody handprint on the bedsheets was undercut during cross-examination, as he could not confirm the stain's origin, nor had it been tested. There were no further substantial explanations to dispute the state's evidence. Moreover, the number of stab wounds and the manner of the attack pointed to premeditation. Prosecutor Cody Womp emphasized the timeline, including Courtney Brewer's testimony about hearing running footsteps near the apartment door at exactly 2:11 a.m., reinforcing the idea that the murder was planned and not the result of a spontaneous outburst.
Courtney was 2:11 a.m. The phone location to her mom was 2:18, 7 minutes. She screamed. Things happened. She was able to know she was in enough danger that she needed to send her mother her location. It wasn't fast. It wasn't fast at all, and we know that. 2:11 is 7 minutes from 2:18. It wasn't fast. She knew she was in danger. She tried to get out of the door, and Courtney told you that she heard a door slam. Jasmine knew she was in trouble. She had time to use her phone before he started killing her.
The jury began deliberating at approximately 4:15 p.m. after the closing arguments. They returned with a verdict shortly after 5 p.m.
With respect to count 1 of presentment 315228, we, the jury, find the defendant, Jason Chen, guilty of first-degree premeditated murder.
This is an emotional verdict. Everyone needs to maintain decorum, please.
A juror later shared that the repeated entries by Jasmine's family into the crime scene had little influence on their decision. The juror stated, "Every single person who went into that room or that apartment had a part in contamination, but it kind of didn't matter in our deliberations because we already knew what was admitted, that he had murdered her." During the sentencing phase, jurors were tasked with deciding whether Jason Chen should ever have the chance to seek parole. Through a translator, Jason's mother made an emotional plea to the jury. Through a translator, Jason's mother tearfully expressed, "He is a very good child. He is not a bad person. I pray that the judge and jury will give him a chance so that he can go home and restart his life." In his closing statements, Jason's attorney, Wise, urged the jury to offer his client the possibility of redemption. He emphasized, "The justice system is not only a measure of how we treat the most virtuous among us, but also a reflection of how we treat the condemned."
By allowing Jason the possibility of parole, we affirm our society's belief that the most condemned among us can strive to rebuild their humanity. You're not tasked with forgiving Jason Chen or even excusing his actions. You are tasked with ensuring justice, a justice tempered with mercy, not because Jason deserves it, but because it's a reflection of our humanity as a whole. I ask that, and we ask, that you give Jason the opportunity, as a 73-year-old man, to seek this redemption. Let him spend the next 5 decades behind bars, reflecting on the choices that he made when he was 22 years old.
The jury reached their sentencing decision in less than an hour.
With respect to the sentence of the defendant, Jason Chen, on count 1 of presentment 315-228, we, the jury, do unanimously find the following statutory aggravating circumstances beyond a reasonable doubt, in that the murder was especially heinous, atrocious, or cruel, and that it involved torture or serious physical abuse beyond that necessary to produce death, and do unanimously agree that the defendant's sentence shall be life imprisonment without the possibility of parole.
During the trial, Jasmine Pace's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Jason Chen's parents, accusing them of aiding their son by providing him with money and information in the days following the murder when he was the primary suspect, and the family was desperately searching for their daughter. The emotional toll of Jasmine's death and the ongoing legal proceedings took a heavy toll on the Pace family. Travis Pace, while testifying, shared that his relationship with Katrina had become strained. Many family members walked out of the courtroom when Travis was called to the stand by the defense. Despite the emotional difficulties with the verdict delivered, much of the family's pain has come to an end, and they were granted the justice they had been seeking against a man they described as a monster, with prosecutors labeling his crime as heinous, atrocious, and cruel.